The South China Sea, a vast expanse of water stretching across Southeast Asia, holds a significance far beyond its picturesque horizons. Shimmering and seemingly peaceful under the tropical sun, its surface reflecting the sky in an unbroken mirror, is actually one of the world's most volatile and fiercely contested geopolitical hotspots. A region where the interests of multiple nations collide, creating a complex web of disputes and rivalries. Beneath its calm surface, where marine life thrives and coral reefs flourish, a fierce struggle plays out, a silent but intense competition for control and influence. This struggle isn't waged with traditional armies, but with fishing boats, the small vessels that represent the livelihoods of countless people, Coast Guard ships, the guardians of national waters, and the construction of military outposts on tiny islands, transforming them into strategic assets. These artificial islands are reshaping the landscape and escalating tensions. This sea is a vital artery for global commerce, a crucial shipping lane connecting east and west, facilitating the flow of goods and resources across the world. It's also a trove of natural resources, believed to hold vast reserves of oil and gas, fueling the ambitions of nations seeking energy security. And beyond economics, it's a symbol of national pride for many, deeply intertwined with historical narratives and cultural identities. Tensions have escalated significantly in the 21st century as nations assert their claims and project their power in the region. This escalation is driven by clashing ambitions, conflicting interpretations of history, and the pursuit of strategic advantage. China claims nearly the entire sea as its own, asserting its dominance over these vital waters. This claim is based on citing historical rights, invoking ancient maps and narratives to justify its expansive territorial claims. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian nations, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia and Brunei, defend their territories, asserting their rights to the resources and waters within their exclusive economic zones. They seek to uphold their claims under international law, appealing to established legal frameworks and principles of maritime governance. The conflict directly affects fishermen, who face harassment, intimidation, and even the risk of arrest as they try to make a living in these contested waters. It also challenges international law, testing the limits of maritime boundaries and the authority of international tribunals. Ultimately, it tests the very principles of ocean ownership, raising fundamental questions about who has the right to control and exploit the resources of the sea. The outcome of this struggle will have a profound impact on global trade, potentially disrupting supply chains and affecting economies around the world. It will also shape regional stability, determining whether the South China Sea becomes a zone of cooperation or a flashpoint for conflict. And it will undoubtedly influence the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region, with implications for the global order. Therefore, understanding the complexities of the South China Sea is key to understanding a central drama of our era, a drama that will shape the future of international relations. Here, history, law and power are not abstract concepts, but tangible forces collide in a slow-motion confrontation, a geopolitical chess game with high stakes. The deceptive calm of these waters, a tranquil facade, hides a turbulent reality that demands our attention, a storm brewing beneath the surface that could have far-reaching consequences. To understand the complexities of this international dispute, we need to start with geography. It's the foundation upon which all claims and counterclaims are built. Understanding the physical space is crucial to grasping the nuances of the conflict. The South China Sea is a vast expanse, covering approximately 3.5 million square kilometers. This immense body of water is a critical waterway for global trade and a significant source of natural resources. That's significantly bigger than the Mediterranean Sea, highlighting its sheer scale and strategic importance. Its size alone makes it a region of considerable geopolitical interest. The South China Sea is bordered by several nations, most notably China, which views the sea as strategically vital. Vietnam, a nation with a long and complex history intertwined with the sea. Taiwan, whose status further complicates the regional dynamics. The Philippines, an archipelago nation heavily reliant on the sea's resources, Malaysia, with its strategic location along key shipping lanes, Brunei, a smaller nation with significant offshore oil and gas interests, and Indonesia, the world's largest archipelago, also borders this contested sea. The South China Sea is dotted with hundreds of islands, reefs and shoals, many of which are uninhabitable rocks. These features are grouped mainly into the Paracels, a collection of islands and reefs in the northern part of the sea. The Spratlys, a more scattered archipelago further south, and Scarborough Shoal, a strategically important feature near the Philippines, once considered navigational hazards avoided by sailors and shipping companies. These seemingly insignificant features are now strategic assets, transforming the region's geopolitical landscape. Because whoever controls them can claim vast surrounding waters and the potentially lucrative resources within, including fisheries and oil reserves. China sees the sea as its backyard, asserting historical claims that encompass a large portion of the area. Vietnam, however, strongly contests these claims, citing its own historical presence and sovereign rights. The Philippines also has overlapping claims, particularly around Scarborough Shoal and the Spratly Islands. Malaysia maintains its claims based on its continental shelf and proximity to certain islands. And Brunei also asserts its rights within its exclusive economic zone, leading to overlapping claims based on proximity and historical usage. The result of these competing claims is a crowded, contested neighbourhood, a region fraught with tension and the potential for conflict. In this complex environment, every nation draws its own lines, defining its perceived territory and maritime rights. Unlike a simple border dispute on land, where lines are clearly demarcated and agreed upon, this is a patchwork of overlapping claims, a tangled web of competing interests and interpretations of international law. Each country uses its own interpretation of history, international law and national interests to justify its position, further complicating the situation. These overlapping zones make negotiation incredibly difficult, requiring delicate diplomacy and a willingness to compromise. The complex geography of the South China Sea, with its numerous islands and intricate maritime boundaries, ensures that resolving this dispute will be anything but simple. It's a challenge that demands careful consideration and a commitment to peaceful resolution. The South China Sea is a global trade superhighway. 1/3 of all global shipping, worth over $3 trillion annually, passes through these waters. Oil tankers, container ships and raw materials all transit this route, linking Asia with the world. Any disruption would send shockwaves through international supply chains. The US, Japan and Europe have no territorial claims but depend on freedom of navigation for their economies. If one nation controlled the sea, it could threaten global trade. Even the perception of risk can reroute ships, raise costs, and endanger economies like Japan and South Korea. The sea's stability is a global economic concern. The South China Sea is not just a regional issue, it's a critical node in the world economy. The South China Sea is rich in oil, gas and fish, resources that fuel economies and feed millions. Billions of barrels of oil and trillions of cubic feet of gas are believed to lie beneath its seabed. Control over even a tiny island can mean access to vast energy reserves. The sea is also a vital fishing ground, providing over 10% of the world's catch and supporting coastal communities. Overfishing and destructive practices are depleting stocks and damaging reefs. Territorial disputes make things worse. As fishermen are chased from traditional grounds and confrontations escalate, the fight is not just for future energy, but for the survival of millions who depend on the sea today. The South China Sea's resources raise the stakes for everyone involved. At the heart of the South China Sea dispute is China's sweeping claim, a claim that encompasses a vast expanse of this vital waterway. This claim is the foundation upon which much of the regional tension is built, and understanding it is crucial to grasping the complexities of the situation. This claim is marked by the infamous 9-dash line, a seemingly simple demarcation that carries immense geopolitical weight. It's a line that has sparked international debate and continues to be a major point of contention. This U-shaped line, initially drawn on maps in 1947 by the Republic of China, boldly covers about 90% of the South China Sea, asserting control over a massive area. This includes not just the water itself, but also the islands, reefs and resources within it. The line reaches uncomfortably close to the coast of Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia and Brunei, creating overlapping claims and raising serious concerns about maritime boundaries. China claims historic rights within this line, arguing that its presence and activities in the region date back centuries. However, the exact meaning and legal basis of the 9-dash line is deliberately vague and has never been officially clarified by China. It remains unclear whether China claims sovereignty over the entire sea enclosed by the line, or whether its claim is limited to the islands, reefs, and the resources contained within those waters. This ambiguity fuels further speculation and distrust. For other nations in the region, particularly those bordering the South China Sea, the 9-dash line represents a significant threat to their established legal rights and entitlements under international law, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. It effectively turns their exclusive economic zones, where they have the right to exploit resources, into disputed territory, subject to Chinese claims and potential interference. The historical basis for the 9-dash line is hotly contested and debated by historians and legal scholars alike. While it's true that regional sailors and fishermen have used these waters for centuries, establishing a long-standing connection to the sea, critics argue that China is selectively interpreting history and historical records to justify its modern ambitions and assert its dominance in the region. Ultimately, the 9-dash line is the primary source of tension and disagreement in the South China Sea, underpinning many of China's assertive actions, including the construction of artificial islands and the deployment of military assets. It is fueling a dangerous regional standoff, with multiple countries vying for control and influence in this strategically important waterway. For China, the 9-dash line is fundamentally about sovereignty and protecting what it perceives as its historical rights. But for its neighbours, it represents a direct challenge to the established rules-based order and a threat to their own sovereignty and economic interests. In contrast, Southeast Asian nations base their claims on international law, especially the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. UNCLOS defines exclusive economic zones up to 200 nautical miles from a country's coast. Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia and Brunei all claim parts of the sea based on these rules. Their legally defined zones overlap with China's history-based 9-dash line, creating a fundamental conflict. For these smaller nations, international law is their main defense against China's power. They argue that history cannot override the rights granted by UNCLOS. The world faces a choice: uphold international law or let might make right. The South China Sea is a test case for the future of the global rules-based order. In 2013, the Philippines challenged China at the Permanent Court of Arbitration, seeking legal clarity on the 9-dash line. China refused to participate, but the tribunal proceeded. In 2016, the court ruled overwhelmingly in favor of the Philippines, declaring China's historic claims had no legal basis under UNCLOS. The ruling also found that China's artificial islands could not generate exclusive economic zones. China rejected the verdict and continued its activities, ignoring international pressure. The tribunal's decision gave legal and moral support to Southeast Asian claimants, but changed little on the water. The episode exposed a weakness in international law. Powerful nations can ignore rulings without consequence. Legal victories don't always translate into real-world change. While legal battles played out, China transformed the sea itself. Massive land reclamation turned reefs into artificial islands, now bristling with airfields, harbours and military bases. These outposts are heavily fortified with runways, radar and missile systems, turning the sea into a network of military strongpoints. China can now project power far from its coast, monitor traffic and enforce its claims. Other claimants' small outposts are overshadowed, making it harder to protect their interests. The US responds with freedom of navigation operations, sailing warships near Chinese-held features to challenge excessive claims. These encounters are tense, raising the risk of accidents or escalation. The South China Sea has become a militarized chessboard with global consequences. The South China Sea is now a stage for US-China rivalry. For the US, it's about upholding a free and open Indo-Pacific and defending international rules. For China, it's about asserting dominance in its backyard and resisting American influence. This great power competition adds danger to already complex disputes. Southeast Asian nations, represented by ASEAN, are caught in the middle, divided and often unable to present a united front. The risk of conflict, accidental or intentional, is ever present. Even a minor incident could escalate, threatening regional and global stability. A major conflict would devastate economies, disrupt supply chains and draw in military powers. The South China Sea's calm surface hides a fault line of global power. How these tensions are managed will shape the security and prosperity of the 21st century.